I remember a few years ago covering a Board of Governors meeting and seeing the owner, Tom Dundon, and everybody's coming in suits, and he's got the look of like I'm watching Dora the Explorer or the boyfriend Diego with
The backpack?
the
The backpack, okay.
and I'm looking for boots and all the rest of the characters, I guess. And he's just a different guy. And, you know, we know that he's got a sense of business that probably goes more with selling cars than it does professional sports and big contracts. And he just has this vision of how to spend money. And, you know, I know you just talked about it, but like he goes from cheap to frugal or, you know, economically a sound guy. When I look at that blue line and Tripp, I'm looking at it and I'm going, does anybody have a better blue line than Carolina right now in the Final Four? And not one guy's making over $5.5 million. And I'm like, maybe Tom's got something going that the rest of the teams should look at.
You know what, Kyper? First of all, you make me think about when they lost the guys up front. When I thought about how they could still navigate a course to go deep and challenge for the Stanley Cup. You know, they still had their blue line intact, and they had, I thought, very targetedly added Shane Goss to spare. Their blue line had every capability to be the best two-way blue line in the National Hockey League, and so far it has been. It's the core and foundation of their team. When I think about Tom, you know, because all of my years, and I mean, Pete Carmanis, the longtime owner, gave me the job with no experience in 1998 when they were in Greensboro. So he took a chance on me that I will be forever grateful. He's in the Hall of Fame. You know, but after the salary cap came into play in 2005, 2006, the Hurricanes, it was the massive exception to the rule that they were a cap team. And since Tom bought the team, they not only have been a cap team, but with the injuries that they've had, in terms of their actual payroll, I think Don would say it's somewhere in the low 90s this year. So it starts with that because that's a game changer. That makes your team better if you spend it wisely, like you just mentioned, with the blue line. I mean, you have some drafted players. I mean, Slavin and Pesce go back to Jimmy Rutherford's time. Burns, we talked about that acquisition. Chatfield, the pro scouting department, a player that they thought was just scratching the surface in the Vancouver organization. And then Gord, having been the manager that you were, I mean, I think Brady Shea, Rod Brindamore would say it. He said it to me this year in one of our coaches' interviews that in all of his time here that he thinks the acquisition of Brady Shea is one of the finest trades in Carolina Hurricanes history. So It's a combination of things, and it's extremely impressive. You're dead right.
And the thing with Brady Shea is when you're a good/great team, that first-round pick is 27 to 32. You know, not what Ottawa did when they got the San Jose Sharks' 5th overall pick a couple of years ago. That's huge.
It's absolutely massive. And then I think about, and this is really a compliment to the market, because I remember, you know, I was at another dinner, this time with my buddy Dean Chenault, who was running our blue line at the time and last couple of years in Toronto. And, you know, the Hurricanes really could have used a righty at the time, and Brady's a lefty. And Don made that deal. He traded for Vincent Trocheck right at that same trade deadline, who gave Carolina a very significant contribution. So that was a really good deadline. But I remember hearing right after the trade from Chris Drury, who was assistant general manager of the Rangers at the time, and he said he had a particularly close relationship with Brady, and he said, look out for him, will you? You know, he loved being a New York Ranger. This is going to be a real culture shock for him. And for Brady Shea, knowing how much he loved being a Ranger, knowing what a terrific Hurricane he's been, fits right into the great people that they have in this organization. But now Brady Shea, and I've talked candidly to him about it, he feels so fortunate that trade happened. And, you know, he loves playing for Rod. He loves being a Hurricane. And when I look at the growth of the franchise going back to my first year broadcasting in Greensboro, coming from a premier organization like the New York Rangers, for Brady Shea to say that, and he said it to me, and he's such a big, big piece of the puzzle of that blue line that you mentioned, Kyper. That's a heck of a compliment to where the Hurricanes were and where they're at now.